back when we were growing, it was a lot of idea based content. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like LeBron's top 10 moments, why this player is overrated, why this player is underrated. But I feel like a lot of people have built personality brands off of making NBA content, which I don't think we could have said in 2017, 2018, aside from maybe SDC.
Right,
Shout
right.
out to SDC. But like, you got the king of the fourth quarters now, Rusty, me and Sage, in my opinion. Um, a lot of people out there right now, Player's Choice, shout out to Player's Choice. Like they
Hmm.
they are building personality based brands off of talking about the NBA, which I think is great because to me, the reason why I also wanted to pivot out of NBA YouTube was the longevity factor, right?
Hmm.
Like how stable is my career gonna be financially speaking if my content is dependent on the NBA and how well the NBA is doing and the interest level around the NBA. But then we're kind of seeing this blueprint of like, yo, this shit is low key more stable than a lot of other niches. Because
Oh
saying
yeah.
like that question of my career is only gonna be as relevant as the NBA is the NBA gonna be relevant in the next 30 years? I would
Hmm.
personally bet yes.
Yes.
I'm not scared of saying that the NBA, at least for 20, is going to be a relevant thing. There's always going to be interest in it, and with interest, there's going to be content to be made. Compared to a lot of these other niches, like the extreme challenge niche, you can only get extreme so much. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Even with social commentary, with the red pill shit, how long is like red pill YouTube gonna last? But with the
Right, right.
NBA, it's already been proven that like a motherfucker like Stephen A can talk about the NBA for a 20, 30-year career. So I
Exactly.
think it's great. I think it's great the way that NBA YouTube has evolved. To me, the question is though, and I do want to have this discussion with you, is that transition between what YouTube is right now and kind of like intermingling with traditional media. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
I see Kenny getting opportunities with TNT. You're getting opportunities directly with the NBA. My next question would be like, is NBA YouTube inevitably just gonna be its own thing? Like being a creator, making sports content, just its own thing separate from, working at ESPN, or is there gonna be like this intermingling factor, and this is just gonna become like the new media? Essentially, is what like Draymond likes to call it.
Right, right. I would say that it's a thing where not everybody is gonna be able to. I don't think it's gonna open up to where the media, traditional media right now, it's just gonna open up to all of NBA YouTube, and everyone's always gonna get opportunities with Bleacher Report, and everyone's gonna get opportunities to be on the NBA channel and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
they have clearly made an effort to reach out to creators, which is something that has changed because I would say, hell, I think you went through the same things I went through. But when NBA YouTube first started, they low key didn't like us. They didn't want us using their footage. They didn't want us saying certain stuff about
Mm-mm.
the NBA, which that's something I didn't personally experience. But I remember SDC, he did. For some reason, they were all over him with
Yeah.
certain stuff that he could actually say in his videos. That's never happened to me. But there has been, like, I had huge copyright battles with them, 3 years ago, where they wouldn't work with us. They were just a hassle. But you fast forward to now, I'm like, yeah, I'll be on Bleacher Report tomorrow. I might be on the NBA Twitch channel. I might be on the NBA app at a certain point. Well, I was just there on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that they realize, well, look, NBA YouTube, this is just what it is. Social media is getting huge. NBA Twitter gets bigger every single year. From NBA Twitter, you get personalities that come to YouTube, like a Cone, the Thunder fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a good example of that. I found him from Twitter before I found him on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's kind of taken that and he's gone to YouTube. And I think there's been a good, I think there's been a good bout of recognition from the league and their affiliates that you can't just ignore what's happening there.
Yeah.
They bring audience with them. They bring interest. They bring different takes. They bring fresh stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I still don't know how they choose exactly who they work with out of those, but I do think that I don't think it's going to be any less than it's happening now. I think
Mm-hmm.
as the years go on, you're going to see more opportunities like what Kenny has got going on right
Mm-hmm.
now, where you see the goddamn through the wire advertisement all on the the sidelines for the entire playoff game. Like, that's crazy. That was not a thing, years and years ago.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I'm glad that they chose to embrace it instead of trying to fight it. And I guess as more people get hip to that, maybe you'll get more people starting NBA YouTube with the idea that, hey, instead of having to take some impossible path to get to the media, because 20 years ago it was way harder to get into NBA media and such. There might be kids out there that are inspired saying, you know what, I might be able to make an ESPN appearance because I made a good basketball channel and I made good content. And I think they're gonna continue to wrap their arms around it and find opportunities for us for creators like us. As far as like being a totally separate thing, if that was your question, if like NBA YouTube is just going to be its thing and you know media is going to is that was
yeah,
what
yeah,
the
essentially
was? Yeah.
just the future of NBA media, right? Like, is it going to be a well integrated thing, or is it just like, yo, I'm gonna work for ESPN, or I'm being an NBA YouTuber type shit? So
yeah, I see it being well integrated because you know guys like Kenny are paving the way right now and doing things that hadn't been done from YouTube before. You know, again, I wasn't even getting opportunities with the NBA years ago, and now they're like, hey, after all these Celtics games, come on Bleacher Report and discuss it afterwards. And so who knows where that's going to lead. I see it for sure being more and more integrated as you go on because they're not going to want to ignore all these different personalities that are popping up. Hell, like we just said, King Josiah, you know, on podcasts with Gilbert Arenas now. Molly Morrison, who was literally just running that Twitter account, now works for Bleacher Report, like literally works for Bleacher Report. So I think it'll be much more integrated. They're not trying to miss out on the wave of Twitter or NBA YouTube, I don't think.
Let me ask you this though, and this is a little bit more of a personal question when it relates to myself. Do you think these opportunities are pretty much reserved for like I'm for lack of a better term, like more player friendly creators than like a motherfucker like myself who's willing to say, yo, Kevin Durant, you're overrated? Or do they really not care? Is it just a matter of interest type shit?
No, because they, at least some of the factions that I work for, like maybe the NBA, look, the way it works, the NBA themselves, they don't want you to come on and damage their brand at all. So if you're going to be on their Twitch, if you're going to be on their YouTube channel, wherever you're going to be, they do not want you to come on there and say anything that's going to like inspire negativity. When I did that show with Channing Frye a couple of years ago, they wanted us to like be as positive as humanly possible. But then on the other hand, you'll have a Bleacher Report that's saying, we want a headline that's going to get people to actually click. So can you give a take about such and such that's going to get people to click? So I would say it depends on who you're working with in the space, but there is 1,000% a space for people who are going to say stuff that's going to get someone to click on it. That's going to make a headline pretty much, you know? And so, yeah, but yeah, just so you know, at least the way it's been for the last couple of years, the NBA don't want anything negative, like nada.
That's interesting that you said that, because going back to SDC, he was talking about how the reason why he was getting a lot of those copyright claims and those copyright battles was, I believe he said in the video, like because you remember the library they gave us, right? Like the direct library you can download. That shit was ass. I don't even think I'll need to go through that, but that shit was buns. But he would actually use that footage, and I don't know how they tracked it, but they knew that he was using that footage. So to them, it's like, you're visibly using footage we give you. We're essentially funding the content that you do. Don't speak about us in a bad light. You know what I'm saying? So like SDC really took advantage of the NBA playmaker perks, and shit like that. They also gave him opportunities, so that's why they were stricter on him. Which honestly, it makes sense for the NBA. I wouldn't think you would want someone that like shit talks on your product essentially within the NBA players.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, as a creator though, as an independent creator on YouTube, we make the content to get our shit off. Like, we don't have a boss. The whole appeal is that we have a boss. We can speak our truth. So it was a little disheartening, and that's why I wanted to ask you too, because it would be disheartening if they just kind of cherry picked who they gave those big opportunities to. But if it's just the NBA though, that's fine. But I feel like a Bleacher Report is more open to those opportunities. I feel like a Barstool Sports, you know what I'm saying, would be more. I mean, they're open to anything, but shit like that. So that's good to hear though. That's good. I like the space. I like the space right now. I don't really got too much complaints about it.
Yeah, same. It's growing. It's still growing after all these years. As you were talking about with longevity, this summer is gonna be 7 years for me, pretty much. This summer will literally be 7 years since I started the channel, and I can still pretty much reach the same heights that I did when the channel was 2 years old. Because, like you said, new stuff
Mhm.
happens in the NBA all the time. So I think that's you were talking about the different spaces. Hell, related to the NBA, I think it's kind of the opposite with the 2K space. That seems like it's shrinking a little bit because a
Mm.
lot of people have pretty much have left it. Now it's growing in some areas. A lot of people can get my league content off, which is good to see because I was a my league enthusiast.
Mhm.
But for a lot of it, creators are going away from it, and I think it's because that's not as dynamic. Something new happens with the NBA all the time. For 2K, it can very much feel like you are doing the same type of stuff in 2022 that you were doing in 2017, and that
Yeah.
can really, really dissuade you. And I think there's a good amount of creators like myself who have went away from it because of that. So every space is not like NBA YouTube where you can pretty much there's so much to draw from. I can make NBA history videos like I still do, then I can break down something that happened today, and you just go all over the place with it. So I think that's a big piece of why it's still growing. But then you see its brother or its sister content partner in 2K.
Mhm.
In my opinion, just from what I'm seeing, it seems like it's shrinking.
No, I definitely agree. I think it's just a social media thing in general, though. Over the last year, I feel like this is the least amount of blow up creators I've seen. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
also specifically with 2K, I think that's a niche where like your longevity is truly dependent on the interest of the thing that you're talking about. And a lot of
Mhm.
people either waited too long or are having a lot of trouble pivoting out of it. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm more confident in NBA YouTube because even within the 2K niche, the My League guys are still killing it. Shout out to
Mhm.
Click, you know what I'm saying? I had to flex on Twitter. I saw the tweet. That's all the tweet, man. But like they're killing it not because of the fact that their content is not related and connected to 2K in actuality. It's about the
Right.
idea and it's about the NBA. Like period point blank. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if 2K23 is hot or not. Like Click making a video called rebuilding the Memphis Grizzlies is gonna hit every single time because it's not dependent on 2K. So
Yeah. No, for sure. And I've always felt like 2K doesn't necessarily love that either because, hell, that's a mode that's not really selling anything. Like that's not selling VC. That's not getting the interest within the park. But I feel the same way pretty much with what you just said because
mhm,
even though the 2K simulation is pretty much that's my entire 2K arm on Twitch. I don't play 2K anymore. I
yeah,
literally just sim. But that's like its own little world. It's from 1984 and all types of storylines and stuff that it created within the game that has nothing to do with the rest of the video game. And yeah, I've always felt like they're not as hip on that because I believe 2K absolutely wants you in the park and they want you buying this and that and the other thing and my league. And hell, I believe that's why we haven't seen Play Now Online get an update since 2K16 because what are you selling with Play Now Online? Absolutely
yeah,
nothing. And so they don't want people killing time on that mode. But they did. I mean, this year my NBA Eras was a huge addition, I
mhm,
think, and so that I think that is inspired by people like Click and Kenny on making that content on YouTube. So at least hopefully they catch on to that, and I hope they don't ruin it with microtransactions in some way. But
mhm,
there's hella content to be made there because you can make your own little world in my NBA Eras in a million different ways. The content can be really unique, and I think that is totally different than Park, where there's only so much you can do. Right? At the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with the city and whatnot.